So this is what the Holy Quran speaks about faith. It says, those who remember Allah while standing, sitting and lying on their sides, and ponder, doesn't say and hope, it says, and ponder over the creations of the heavens and the earth. Our Lord, they say, thou hast not created this in vain. Nay, holy art thou, save us then from the punishment of the fire. It is their observation of the world that leads them to the conclusion that God exists, and leads them to the conclusion that it is not without purpose. And that is what Iman is. It is the observation of something and taking it as a fact and seeking to build on that on the basis of goodwill and trust in God. The Holy Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is faith? And he said, it is goodwill towards men, towards all the prophets, and towards God. Now what does this mean? What has goodwill got to do with trust? When he fell backwards, he knows I'm not, hopefully, I've never met the chap before, Assalamu alaikum, but hopefully he knows I'm not a rascal. And he estimated that he's not going to let me fall in this scenario, even if he is a rascal. And he made a judgment and he went up there. He derived his conclusion that I'm going to fall backwards on the basis of certain things. And those were based on goodwill. He didn't think ill of me. And this is why the Hazur recently quoted the Promised Messiah in one of his sermons, saying, thinking ill of others is the root of every evil. Because thinking ill of others is, in actual fact, the fundamental thing which undermines goodwill, and it undermines goodwill towards God ultimately. You see, faith and Iman is trusting that what other people have observed of God, when they tell you about it, they're not lying. That is what actually Iman is. It's not based on hope. It's based on your observation of people's behavior. It's based on the fact that the majority of people of mankind have said they know God, that they believe in God, and that many people have said they have experienced God. So Iman is a state of observation and a state of conclusion which is reasonable, which does not have full proof yet. Nobody is saying it does. Not at this stage yet. This talk is about Iman to ilm. Ilm is when you get true understanding, true certainty. Iman is when you have reasoned observation. So is Iman unscientific? Because faith is unscientific according to many scientists. You know, there are many books out there, the God Delusion, right? God is Not Great is one book by Christopher Hitchens, the late Christopher Hitchens. We'll give you another one about faith. There's one about faith in the title, The End of Faith by Sam Harris. So these are atheists who believe that faith is unscientific. And in a way, to a certain degree, if it isn't based on observation, it can be. We only had an individual come recently talking to us about evolution. Let's not go into that, okay? But here are some examples of Iman. So tell me, can anybody prove to me in this room, and this is a bit of a rude question, so forgive me, can anybody tell me and prove to me who their father is? Do anybody have children in the audience? Do you have children? Does anybody have children?
Not unless you do a paternity test.
Pardon?
Not unless you do a paternity test.
Exactly, not unless you do a paternity test. How many fathers do a paternity test before they say that they're their sons or they're their daughters? Almost none. Only if they have doubt. The whole of the world, for the whole of humanity, all of the husbands and even boyfriends nowadays have been relying on the word and the trust that they have in their partner as to who that child is. And they build their entire life around that child. And they invest thousands of pounds in that child. They waste days and years educating that child and loving that child. All on the basis of what?
Inference.
Inference. On trust. Which is effectively Iman. Absolutely right. This is something else here. Teachers. When you go to university, how many facts do you learn? You learn innumerable facts. So many facts. Do you test every single one through scientific method? Trying to find out through observation yourself if it's true? No, you depend on a whole history of scientists who have done that and who have told you their results, and you've trusted them. You've had Iman. You haven't had faith necessarily, you've actually had Iman, because you're basing on reason and observation. Flying fish, that's a drawing of a flying fish. The Prophet Messiah, he said, if somebody has never seen a flying fish and you tell them about a flying fish, that person will be like, man, you're mad. Flying fish, that's a crazy idea. But it's on the basis of trust that you believe that there is something called a flying fish. It actually jumps out of the water. I've actually seen it. It's amazing. And this is another thing in the bottom right corner. is dark matter. Dark matter makes up the majority of the mass and the energy in the universe, and yet it is totally unobservable. Totally and utterly unobservable to our current eyes. We can observe its effects in the universe and the effects it has through gravitational light, but it doesn't actually, it's not something we can see, but we infer it to exist on the basis of reliable measurements we make otherwise. Oh, right, okay. So, another question I want to ask you is, would you accept this guy as your personal trainer? Would you accept this guy as your personal trainer? You wouldn't. You walk into the gym, you pay for a personal trainer, you pay, it's quite expensive to get a personal trainer, and you get like a fat tubby kid. You'd be like, man, I'm not having you as my personal trainer. One, you're a child, and two, you're pretty podgy. I mean, nobody wants a fat personal trainer. Or ever. Nobody wants a fat personal trainer. I don't care if they're a child or an adult, nobody wants a fat personal trainer. Because, why? Because their own condition is an indication, it's a sign, see where I'm going with this? It's a sign, okay, of what they're going to be teaching you. If they can't even keep themselves in good shape, how on earth are they going to keep you in good shape? It's impossible. It's like nobody wants a fat cardiologist as their doctor. Nobody wants a fat cardiologist. They don't. This is important because we make judgments every single day based on observation and deduction through the basis of signs, not on the basis of observed experimental, like totally falsifiable facts. We make signs every day on millions of things. And if you think about the number of things, who here has been to, I don't know, Eritrea? Nobody's been to Eritrea? Do any of you doubt that Eritrea exists because you haven't seen it? Of course not. You all believe in Eritrea because you have a continuation of people telling you about Eritrea. In the news, you may have read about it, you may have seen a picture once in a while, but I bet none of you could actually remember a picture you've seen of Eritrea. But you all believe it exists because of trust that you have in other human beings who have observed it and who come and tell you about it. But the question is it good enough? Is it good enough to just believe in what other people tell you? Is that all religion is? Is it just about believing what other people tell you and trusting them that they are right? Well, in certain regards it is, on certain topics. The Holy Prophet ﷺ said that he had seen heaven and hell. He had seen the inmates of heaven and hell. How many of us are going to see the inmates of heaven and hell through a vision or a dream during our lifetime? Probably not many of us. There are some things which we do have to have trust in, and that's a fact. Because otherwise there would be no difference between the prophets of God and his followers. But that trust is still based on our own observation often as well. And that's what I want to talk to. There's this verse of the Quran, eyes cannot reach him, but he reaches the eyes. And he is the incomprehensible, the all-aware. What is science? Science is the act of eyes reaching something. When you see something, that is what science is. It's the observation of something and the conclusion you draw from that thing. Right? But Allah cannot be seen. Why? Because He is the incomprehensible. So then how can you know Allah? How can you come into direct contact with Allah in some shape or form? Or communication that should prove to you as an individual that God exists? It's that because when you try and observe or measure something, you're trying to observe it and break it down into smaller quantities. You're trying to limit it within the scope of your vision. Therefore, your eyes can never limit God. But God knows your capacity for seeing. And so He can measure you. And that's the meaning of this verse. He reaches the eyes. He measures your capacity and reveals Himself in accordance with your capacity. And this is where I just want to play you a video and prove it to you that flying fish exist. Oh yeah. Okay. So the question is, why can't I see God? That's the question, isn't it? We can see everything in this universe, we can see it. Why is it that God has to reveal Himself in a manner to our souls? Why can't He present Himself within our physical capabilities of seeing or touching or something like that? Well, this is a very good point that the Quran itself answers. It says, and even if we opened to them a door from heaven and they began ascending through it, they would surely say, only our eyes are dazed, rather we are a bewitched people. if a prophet of God was to show magic tricks like magicians do, nobody would believe him on the basis of those tricks. Because on a daily basis we come across magicians who defy our expectations and defy what our eyes see. And so showing something which can be replicated by other human beings is meaningless. Totally meaningless. Because it's not unique to God. We need something which is unique to God and only God possesses. And that is what revelation is. Because revelation is intrinsically related to prophecy. That God knows of the future, something which only the Creator could know. And that is what He tells you. And that is when you experience it, and when you witness it. And it may be something as simple as which university you're going to be going to. Or something as simple as which year you might be married. Something to do with your life which is personal to you. But you have to obtain these instances in your own life. Because these instances, as Hazur said, I think it was about 4 or 5 khutbahs back, he said the real miracles are the ones you see in your own life. The real miracles are those things, or prophecies, or experiences of God you have had, and then you witness coming true. Although the sun and moon eclipses and the prophecy of World War I, these were signs for the whole of the world. And they were majestic signs, second only to the signs of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. The reality is that they will not affect your heart in the same way as your own personal experiences. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ continuously emphasized to his followers that you must seek experiences and experience of God yourself. Because nothing can bring about a personal change in you except for God interacting with you Himself. And that is the heart and soul of Ahmadiyyat, and that's what I really want to emphasize. Do not become like people who say that it is only our khulafa or our missionaries or people who are high up in our Jamaat, I should say, obviously Hazur is the highest, but people who are in particular positions who may experience things. Even the common child in our Jamaat can experience of God. Even a young boy or a young girl. And part of the beauty of the Jamaat is that anybody can come in of any education, and through Iman, through observation of God, and through sacrifice, which is something my brother Hamza will be talking about shortly, they can attain a level through the blessing of following the promised Messiah, which was not open to even the saints before the promised Messiah. So this is something we must not let go in our Jamaat. It is this belief that God will continue to interact with us. And every khutbah Hazur gives is about often somebody's dream or somebody's personal experience of God whereby they were guided to the Jamaat. And this is what Hazur is also emphasizing to us and reminding us that our God is a living God. And this is what I want to finish on. The role of revelation. Actually, I want to finish on something after this. The Prophet ﷺ in the philosophy of the teachings of Islam says, with regard to the hereafter, our knowledge arrives at the degree of certainty by sight when we receive direct revelation and hear the voice of God through our ears and behold the true and clear visions of God with our eyes. Without a doubt, we are in need of direct revelation for the purpose of achieving such perfect understanding for which our hearts hunger and thirst in our beings. And the question finally is, which I want to just read out again from the Promised Messiah, is how to go from the stage of Iman to Ilm. And this is what the Promised Messiah has to say. It's described in Iman is translated as faith here, but what he's referring to is faith as it is in Islam. Faith which can be converted to Ilm. He says, the main principle followed by the prophets is that faith proves fruitful only if the unseen is accepted as unseen. And the self-evident testimony of physical senses and absolute mathematical proof is not insisted upon, inasmuch as all spiritual merit, what he has showed there when he fell backwards, merit, and worthiness of nearness to divine, depends on righteousness. And he alone possesses true righteousness, and this is the definition of righteousness, who safeguards himself against the extremes of investigation, multiple denials, and testing every little detail, and is prepared to accept a way that appears safer and preferable to other ways as the truth, out of a sense of precaution initially. And then he explains further, this is faith, and this is what helps open the door of divine grace and becomes the means of acquiring good fortune here and in the hereafter. When a person establishes himself firmly on the faith and then seeks to foster and develop his knowledge through prayer, worship, reflection and observation, God Almighty becomes himself his guardian his protector, and taking him by the hand leads him from the stage of faith to that of what the Promised Messiah referred to as certainty of sight, Ayn al-Yaqeen. And in this quote, the Promised Messiah, which I just previously read, he related Ayn al-Yaqeen, certainty of sight, to revelation and the experience of God. And that is something we should always seek, not for it itself, but as a means to increase in our knowledge of God, our understanding of God, and finally to always seek to please God. It is not the end in itself. The Promised Messiah said, the end of life is to please God. That is the focus. But you cannot to please God, you must also have your heart attached to Him. And that is the journey, hopefully, that we should all continue. And it's not a process of getting anywhere. We're all on that journey, at every stage, from Iman to